The following podcast is a presentation of Small Biz America.
Small Biz America.
This is Beyond Networking. And now, here's your host, Ron Sukenick.
Well, good day and welcome to Beyond Networking Being with Ron Sukenick, and I am Ron Sukenick. Glad that you can join us. And if you're tuning in or listening for the first time, this weekly podcast is really about taking networking and relationships to another level. And when I talk about networking, I'm not talking about the shaking of hands and the passing of business cards and the follow-up phone calls. I'm talking about the sharing of ideas and information and our resources, and we do it by inviting on innovative thinkers and creators that can and do share real strategies and real feelings and real techniques on how you can be and take thinking to another level. And whether it's being with self, being in business, being on a team, or being in relationship, that's what we hear and that's what we're talking about. So let's really jump into today's program. And today I'd like to introduce a lady that, according to EatonWeb, is perhaps the most influential relational blogger on the internet. Her blog, Liz Strauss, that successful blog, had been called both a destination and an event because of Open Comment Night, a blog-to-blog conversation, the business cafe, and reader conversations that lasts for days. Her blog has almost 50,000 comments and a fiercely loyal community of readers. So if you were to ask Liz what she does, she'll tell you she makes business sticky. Or business is sticky, and we'll talk with Liz about that in a moment. Liz, by the way, has 20 years' experience in publishing with over 10 with international partners in Europe, Australia, the UK, and Ireland. She's worked with startups, turnarounds, small businesses, companies in transition, and giants around the world. And of course, Liz also led the vision for the SOB conference. I love that, Liz, SOB conference in '07. So we'll talk about that as well. The Relationship Bloggers Conference that gained the attention of Business Week, the Chicago Sun-Times, and certainly the Innovation Initiative at the Kellogg School of Business. Liz, welcome to the program. It's great to have you.
Oh, thank you. That was just great introduction.
Well, you're such a great writer. I just love that. But I'll tell you, Liz, I've got so many things I want to talk to you, and I'm sure we're not going to get it all done today. But I know that you were up at 6:22 your time and somewhere in Chicagoland, I think, and it starts out saying, "I've been thinking," and I always like to begin with a quote. I want to get your take on this, and then I want to move on and then move through blogging and whatever we can get through in the short period we have. But, E.E. Cummings, an American poet, had stated that you can teach almost anybody to think, believe, or know, but it's so difficult to be able to teach people to be. Do you agree with that? And how can I move to new levels and kind of be all I can be?
Well, it's an interesting question, and not to sound like Clinton, and it depends on what the is. But Gandhi also said, if you want to change, you have to be the change. It depends what you mean by be. Can you teach people to be? No, you can't teach people to be. You can only give them room that they can walk in and become. And I think that we're all sort of on the path of becoming. Any self-actualizing person never quite gets to being. They're always on the path of becoming what they want to be. You can look toward what you want to be, and you can imagine what you want to be. But I don't think you ever get to be what you want to be. If you do, then you're done.
Yeah, so a room that I can walk into, and in fact, I'm thinking that it's kind of like maybe your blogging site, a destination for people. Is that a place that I can go and be?
Yeah, there's my other blog is called Letting Me Be. Yeah, it's room to just exist I think being is probably one of the luxuries of life.
Oh, it is, isn't it? And I often thought that you got to be before you do, and you do to the extent of what you are, and what you are is based predominantly on how you think. So to me, this power, this possibility for achievement is all based on my thinking. And then I wake up, and I wasn't up at 6:22, by the way, but you were. And
oh, that was late.
But you were thinking. So you're thinking that early. And as I think I see, could you share with people listening right now about what took place this morning when you did that I've Been Thinking blog?
Can you tell me a little more about what you want to know?
Well, sure. I don't know about the power of thoughts, I guess.
What I was thinking when I was thinking.
Wait, what were you thinking when you were thinking? My God, you're talking about the power of thoughts.
Yes.
And how things serve us, and as I think I see, and as
right.
I think I am, and I'm going to think it so. So what about you? I mean, my God.
Right. So many people I know don't know what they want to be if they grow up. Don't take the time to stop and breathe. So in the morning, I write a blog post about that sort of thing, about how we might change the world, or we might change ourselves, or we might just stop and think for a minute, just for a second. And I try and do that. Reflection's really important. And when I stop to think long enough, I can see things about myself that empower me. And I saw myself thinking and where I wanted to go, and then I have feelings about that, and then I can, with the seeing where I want to go and feeling that I want to get there, it's almost impossible to stop me.
Okay, so you've been thinking. Then I got to think a little bit as a result of thinking about what you wrote, and so is that relational blogging? Help me out with that. And it's so elusive sometimes when everybody talks about blogging, and so how do you define relational blogging?
Well, first of all, it's not at all like writing for your 8th grade teacher. When you want to blog for relationships, you have to think of it like a conversation. And conversations, if you'll notice, even this one, you never quite get to finish your thought, and you never quite get to complete it, and you never walk in with a whole thought together, which for your 8th grade teacher, you sort of write everything out, and you tie it in a bow, and you make it all perfect, and then it's over. And she either says, good job, bad job, or fix this. But if you have a conversation, you put a thought out there, and then someone adjusts it, and then you adjust it back, and then it keeps going back and forth. So when you blog for conversation, you put your thoughts out there as best you can, the way you do in a conversation, but you leave room for people to come in and have their own, which they do. There's already thoughts in the comment box of other people who have their own ideas about what I said, in the same way you just did.
So what helps to strengthen this concept of relational blogging, if you will, is this opportunity for people to contribute and to interact. I mean, is that the success that you're having on this blogging site?
Yeah, I don't try too hard to say everything. I try to speak from my experience. And if I make a list, I put the first 4 things or the first 7 things I think of, not all 10. I don't stretch really hard to put all 10 because I want to leave room for other people to have their thoughts.
Which makes sense. And by the way, take me back a little bit, Liz. When did you first get into this thing called blogging? I mean, when did you really pick that up and start to run with it?
I started writing on my writing blog in July of 2005, and it was mostly to give people a place to go to get away from cell phones and elevators.
Cell phones and elevators.
Yeah.
That's great. And so they got away from it. So they end up, but there's no shortage of blogs to go to. I mean, people blog on everything, don't they?
Yeah, and some of them do it really well, and some of them not so much.
Not so much. And by the way, let's stick with this whole thing about relationships. And do you see a difference between your online relationships and those offline, and beyond the obvious physical differences?
Oh, what a great question. Gee, I should ask that one day.
I think you have.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a big difference. There are big differences in lots of ways because when you're online, you can't look at people and look them in the eye. Everything changes, and that's why authenticity and transparency are big words on the internet. If you aren't authentic and transparent about who you are, the whole communication breaks down, and so. Relationship online in the comment box is more thoughtful, and also it is a more of a level playing field for introverts and extroverts because when you have to type your words, you have to think about them to put them in there. You have to think about how they're going to be taken by a reader, and the extrovert can't outshout the introvert because every typewritten word has about the same value. So introverts have a stronger voice and extroverts have a lesser voice. Relationships happen faster and go deeper in the comment box if you want them to, because physical attributes don't interfere in ways that they do in person. However, they're different. They're highly mental, thoughtful relationships. They're just different.
Yeah, it doesn't. When you think about it, Liz, I mean, everybody talks about this thing called relationships, but why is it, at least in my opinion, that so many people do so little about them? I mean, it's kind of like a lot of rhetoric. Do you sense that at all?
I missed one of the words you said. Everybody talks about.
Yeah, everybody seems to talk about relationships and how important it is to them in their business and growing their business. But the question is, why are so few people doing anything about it? And I'm challenging you to tell me if, in fact, you agree with that.
Well, I do so wholeheartedly agree with that, and I do so sit on the relationship side of the argument and have had to deal with it. That I've got an answer. The problem is that people look at things that they can see, and people look at things that they can measure. And so when you talk about quality, schedule, and budget, people notice schedule and budget because they can measure it, but they don't notice quality because they can't. If I'm the product person and I'm building something of quality, you have to take my word for it that it's of quality, or you have to stop and spend a lot of time to figure out whether it's of quality. Whereas schedule and budget, you look at a spreadsheet, you look at a schedule, and you know whether it's on time or late. You know whether it's over budget or under budget. Relationships are like quality. You have to understand them. They're intuitive. They're right brain. They're not highly measurable. And the problem is that relationships have been pretty much relegated down to the realm of sales and customer service. Oh, you guys take care of that, and we'll take care of the bottom line. Relationships haven't made it to the bottom line. And it's up to people like me to translate how relationships hit the bottom line and how they impact the bottom line in a positive fashion.
So from the so we're talking about, and of course this is a business conversation. We're not talking about the boy-girl,
right,
guy type relationships. But the fact is, so what is the return? Often I talk to people about return on relationships, and we come up with quality of life. So if I have stronger and deeper and relationships in my life, then I've got a good quality life going on. But you're saying that it's difficult to quantify it, and you can't really go. Or could I go to the bottom line as a return on that relationship?
Definitely. I mean, I have one great example is that if Halliburton ran their business more on relationships and less on the bottom line. Then when they went to go do business in Mexico, they wouldn't have to hire. They hired entire companies solely for the purpose of their relationships. They find the company that they hire in Mexico. They're hiring it because they have relationships with the government, because they have relationships with other companies there. Americans are traditionally bad at relationships. When I went to Sundance to help build a new strategy and build a new product line, one of the strategies was to work with companies all around the world to bring product to the U.S. market by building it together and versioning it for this market. So it was a highly relational strategy. And the first thing I said when I walked into most of those companies was, I will make you a promise. If you let me use your files as opposed to printing my books for me, I will not treat you the way other Americans have. That's the power of relationship. I promised them a good relationship and delivered on it, and I was the only American publisher that they were willing to give up a dual print run. And therefore, I was able to print books when I wanted, where I wanted, in the quantities I wanted, without having to deal with their whims. And it was a significant thing that they were giving up in order to maintain a relationship that was in a positive.
And I hate to put you on the spot with this, Liz, but I think I can, because I know you come from being real and in this discussion. Most people, at least in my opinion, they're not alien to this thing called relationship. In fact, they've seen them before, but most people don't have a definition, Liz. And I haven't read all your blogging, but I'm looking forward to it. But my question
don't worry,
is,
I don't either.
You haven't either? Is that what?
Yeah, I don't read my stuff either.
You don't either, I know.
Right.
But let me ask you this: how would you define a relationship?
A relationship, a business relationship. It's a conversation between two people in which a contract between two people in which who you are as a company and who I am as a company works together, sort of like a Venn diagram, and where we agree upon who we're going to be. It's a soft contract.
It was kind of like a co-creation type thing, or like we have overlapping purpose, and so we're
right.
Co-creating.
Yes, it's an agreement of who we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so, and I think I kind of asked this question earlier, and then I want to move into this beyond branding thing. But so blogging. So how has it really changed the way you think about relationships then? That helped me strengthen that understanding.
Well, it has changed the way I think about relationships because it has changed the way I think about myself. I thought I knew a lot about myself and a lot about relationships, and I was a very self-aware person when I came to blogging. But when you're a writer and the audience starts talking back, you start learning even more about yourself. And the more you know about yourself, the more you bring to a relationship. It was an amazing thing when we did SobCon last year, which is the Relationship Bloggers Conference, because about 3 weeks before the conference, it suddenly dawned on me as I was visualizing who I was going to be speaking to that, oh my God, I've crawled around inside these people's heads, and I've never actually met them. But 70% of the people in the room I'm going to be speaking to, I know on an intimate thought level. We've talked about things like humility and business and strategy and all sorts of things. Many of them I've talked to on the phone.
So
I don't know anyone who's had this experience before.
So did you invent
and it was
that?
Totally electric.
Were you the creator of that experience? Did you initiate putting together this blogging conference?
Well, there were 5 of us involved who founded it together. It was someone else's idea, but I did a lot of the choreography. So to speak.
You did the choreography. Let me ask you this, Liz, and I notice, as I look at your work and you've got your manifesto and the perfect virtual manager and work with Liz, if a company is interested in building a blogging presence that can build and deepen and strengthen relationships with people, I mean, is that how people can work with you? Do you help them in doing that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I bring communities. I build experiences and atmospheres where people come together and participate and come back again and again.
So you would coach or mentor somebody to be able to be in motion, to set up a system, if you will, that can do what you do so successfully.
Right. Well, and it's even bigger than that. I've helped companies actually align their whole image so that customers fall in love with them.
Fall in love with them. Wouldn't they love that? Let me step into something else if I can. I love branding. I love, to me, branding is a flow of feelings among people. In fact, I feel the same way about relationships. But you get, in a sense, you made a comment about beyond branding. I make business sticky. And give me your take on that. And I think I know where you're going with that, but talk to me a little bit about that. How do you do that, and what is that?
Well, imagine, what's a product you love or you like a lot?
Oh, I like the home video studio franchise, which is an up-and-coming franchise system.
All right. Well, imagine their label is falling off. I'm the adhesive that puts it back on.
Oh, so the label's falling off, and you so
it's like the Hershey's syrup. The label is falling off. Branding helps you decide who you are in the eyes of your customer, and that's really important. But you can have the best tagline in the world, and if people don't remember it, even though it describes who you are, even though your company is well defined, if people don't remember you and come back and love you, the problem with branding right now is that it's all in the head and not enough in the heart. And if you don't have head and heart together, you're not sticky. Sticky is about people coming back and being madly in love with you and fiercely loyal.
I don't know if you know the name. Kathleen Brahoni wrote a book called Living a Connected Life, but had a chance to be with Kathleen, and she, is into psychotherapy and analysis, and brought to my attention that the heart fully develops before the brain. I was not aware of that up until just a few years ago. So you're saying then, one of the challenges for people that are branding in business today is they're more in the head than from the heart. And you're telling me today that you can, and we won't mention names, but there are brands that are very big brands in this country, and you've got the labels coming off?
Well, let's go the other direction. If you only tell the facts of history, you don't get the whole story. If you only told the facts of the Volkswagen Beetle, it never would have sold. I mean, it was the heart of the Volkswagen Beetle. People fell in love with the Volkswagen Beetle. If there has to be, it's like frosted mini wheats. It has to appeal to the adult in you, the sophisticated adult in you, but it also has to appeal to the kid in you in order for it to be sticky. It's got to have both. It's got to have the head and the heart.
So in a sense then, I'm really getting this a little bit, Liz, because I think it seems like there are brands, but there's not that much blogging in and around the brand. So is that just a great business strategy to incorporate as part of a marketing program?
Well, sure, if you do it right. I mean, you can come out and you can blog informationally. You can blog and be afraid of your customers. You can, but you have to blog in such a way that people understand that there's a human on the other side of the screen, and it's a human who cares about them. And that's kind of where companies get it wrong. the minute we don't mean to, but we all tend to be self-centered. So it's I have a story about my friend Eddie in California, and I always call him up and say, "Hi Eddie, how am I?" And he always says, "Oh, you're fine. How am I?" And then he says, "Oh, enough about me. Let's talk about you. How do you like my sweater?" You know, and companies do that. You know, we sort of like go to our customers and we say, you know, how are we doing? How do you like our new product? How do you like, you know? And we just talk about ourselves all the time, and we think we're talking about our customers. But if you really want them to love you, we need to talk about them and be about them.
Yeah, and this is, you know, I'm really enjoying taking some time with you, Liz, and our time is almost up, but my God, there's just so much to cover. In fact, I had also noticed that you may not have ever met a stranger. And in fact, that was something that your dad talked about as the daughter of did he own a saloon?
Yeah, he always called it a saloon.
And I really want to, with your permission, I'm going to invite you back because that's a whole other story on its own.
That would be fun.
You know, we've been speaking today with a speaker and author, Liz Strauss, an incredible blogger that's up today at 6:22. In fact, I'm not sure what time she goes to bed at night. and what a treat it's been. And for those that want to learn more about Liz, there's a couple of places I guess we can suggest they go, Liz, right? One is lizstrauss.com is your website.
Right.
And then the blogging is successful-blog, you know, successful-blog.com.
What's really fun is you can just Google Liz.
You can just Google Liz.
Yeah.
And you're telling me you're coming up, Liz.
Well, there's Liz Claiborne first, but depending where you're at, I'll come up second or third. Or
That's good. I should be so lucky to put in Ron and I come up second maybe, but who knows? And Liz, if people want to talk to you, is it easy for them to call you somewhere? And can we give out a number?
Yeah, the numbers 773-619-0371. It's on both of
and that's in the fine state of Illinois, isn't it?
Yes, the fine city of Chicago, right across the street.
Yeah, you know, my daughter goes to college up there at Columbia. She lives right there in the Gold Coast. Lucky her, a nice 21-year-old girl wanting to make her world work. And Liz, in closing, I always want to leave people thinking about something, and I call them thinking points for connecting forward. And so what thinking point can you leave for the people listening today?
If you make everything in your life about them, it will always be right. It's always about the other guy, always leaving the other guy a place to stand and giving the other guy something. The best promotion you can do or have is to promote the other person.
Wow. And you know, and that takes us beyond networking and being with people. So thank you so much. And Liz, what a treat to be with you. And I'm going to be following your blogging because I just love your work and how you do it. So thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I just enjoyed it immensely.
Well, thank you so much. And talk to you real soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Networking. For more information or to subscribe to this podcast, visit smallbizamerica.com.
Small Biz America.